Hi, everyone. Welcome to another TLN webinar we have today. Today we're talking about the Handbook of Black Librarianship. And so we have with us Michele Fenton, Andrew Sekou Jackson, and Marva DeLoach here to talk about it, and I'm going to pass it right along.
Good morning, everybody. Glad to have you with us today and another presentation about our project that we've been working on for the last several years. This is a work of love and passion for Black librarianship and for documenting the history of our people in librarianship and the issues that we've had over the years, following up the work of Dr. E.J. Josie with all of the books that he's written on Black librarianship. And as I was preparing for several of the book talk we've done, I came across something that took me back to when I was getting ready to attend graduate school in 1993. And in 1992, attended the first National Conference of African American Librarians. And one of the presentations there was a reality check for our involvement of people of African ancestry involvement in the profession and in the field of librarianship. And it was a presentation done by Dr. Idibari Zulu from UCLA called The Ancient Kemetic Roots of Library and Information Science. And I want to just share this with you because it conflicts with what we were told in graduate school in terms of the history of libraries. He said, contrary to traditional library history taught in American schools of library and information science, the library as an institution and librarianship as a profession have their roots in ancient African society. This Africa has developed an advanced system for collecting, organizing, describing, preserving, and providing access to information, and had developed a class of professionals to operate the system. So, and it's all documented in his presentation. You can find it in the conference proceedings from the first national conference. So it gives us a sense because when I started graduate school, they were telling us just the opposite. And I'm sure most people's introduction to librarianship has that same contrary rule that we had nothing to do with librarianship. And this goes back thousands of years that this is our profession. So wanted to share that. And then secondly, when you look at it historically, how the different laws in the country have impacted our access to reading, of course, books, and then, of course, libraries in the communities, and additionally, our access to the profession. So the Handbook of Black Librarianship is important because it continues to update 20 years from the last book that EJ and Marva put together. And it goes back to even some of the conflicts and some of the issues that come out of the 1970 edition or 1977 edition of the first handbook and the other books on Black librarianship. Many of those issues still exist today. So I think that's where we are now and why this is important for us to undertake this project and the need for it in the 21st century. Michele?
Okay. Before I get started, I'm going to share two quotes. One is from Dr. Josie. It's called, "We must keep before us the roots from which we came." The other quote is from F.E. Lee Morris. "Legacies are built as you work, whether celebrated or not. So concentrate on doing the work, not on building a legacy." So basically what the handbook is a collection of essays on librarianship, library service, history, education, associations, innovations, collaborations, collections in the Black and African diaspora. And it serves as a resource and a guide, not just for library workers and students, but it's just for anyone who's interested in learning more about libraries and librarianship, and how they affect, Black African diaspora. So this is Dr. Josie. He was a co-founder of BCLA and he authored several books, but the handbook is one of his most popular works. This is the first edition. It was published in '77, and Dr. Josie, he co-edited this with Ann Alex Shockley, and it was published at that time by Libraries Unlimited. This is the second edition. It came out in 2000, and Dr. DeLoach, who is here with us today, and Dr. Josie, they co-edited this edition. And one thing about this edition is that this was the last book Dr. Josie wrote before he passed away in 2009. And Scarecrow Press was the publisher for this edition. So the question is, the first and second editions are both great, so why you need a third one? Well, here's why. We need a third one because a lot of great things have happened within the last 20 years. So, because we first, like for example, we have Dr. Hayden, who's the first woman and African American as Librarian of Congress. We have Tracy Hall, who is the first African American woman Executive Director of ALA. And then BCLA celebrated its 50th anniversary back in 2000. And not only that, BCLA received two IMLS grants. One is the I-Black Caucus, which focuses on LIS students. And the other one is the BHM Black History Month study that Dr. Deborah Robertson and Dr. Grace Jackson Brown are doing to study Black History Month program in public libraries. Also, past President Richard E. Ashby, he started Literacy Nation, which focuses on literacy to communities of color. And then across the ocean in Africa, they started their own association called AFLIA, which stands for African Library and Information Associations and Institutions. Then, of course, Rodney Freeman, a member Rodney Freeman, he started the Black Male Archives. And then not only that, of course, technology. The other reason is we want to reach a new generation of librarians because some people now weren't even born when the second or first editions came out, and we want to reach them. But at the same time, we want to continue sharing the stories of those who paved the way before us, the librarians who came before us. So here's how the third handbook got started. In 2022, Andrew submitted a proposal to Rowman and Littlefield for a third edition. It was accepted. So in the fall of that year, me, Marva, and Andrew, we sent out, a call for essays to various listservs, BCLA, ACRL, ALA Collect, eMERT, and IFLA. So, and we got like over 100 essays. Most were from the United States, but we did receive some from Canada, Brazil, and India. And essays were like represent a wide representation of different people, librarians, students, publishers, retirees, support staff, trustees, and community volunteers. And these are some of the topics covered here. One is technology, which is the big one that was especially a main difference between the first two editions. And then we have wisdom for retirees, outreach, health information literacy, history, LIS, education, just a whole bunch of them here. And then what's different and what's the same? In addition to the topics covered in the first and second edition, the third edition has essays on technology, health information literacy, and international libraries. What we kept from the first two editions, we kept Dr. Josie's and Casper Jordan's chronology of events in Black librarianship. It's been updated to include events from 1794 until the fall of 2023. And we also kept Casper Jordan's African American Forerunners in Black Librarianship. And it was revised and updated to include more libraries in addition to the ones that he had in the two previous editions. Also, what makes this edition different from the first two, it has more historical data on BCLA and like its affiliates, conferences, awards, etc. Just more historical data compared to the last two editions. So we're going to skip that. So well, I'm going to go right here. This is some of the people that we did, some of the libraries. I was going to show some of these. This is Major Owens. He was the first librarian to serve in the House of Representatives. He was from New York, and also, I think in '93, he submitted a bill to the House of Representatives that would have HR 906. It would have required that the Librarian of Congress have training and or education in library science, but unfortunately, the bill was never voted on. So this is Clara Stanton Jones. She was the first African American to serve as president of ALA. This is Effie Lee Morris over here to the far corner. I don't know if you see my pointer, but to the far corner, that's Effie Lee Morris. She was the first African American to serve as president of PLA, the Public Library Association. Right below her is Wallace Van Jackson. He was the first one to get the Centennial Award from ALA. Then below him is Reverend Thomas Fountain Blue. He started the first training program, and he was the first public library director of African descent in Kentucky. Right next to him is wow,
Silver Sprinkle.
Sylvia Sprinkle Hamlin. She was the director of the Forsyth County Public Library. She passed away about 2 years ago. And then above her is Lillian Cole Thomas. She was very well powerful librarian out of New York, and she passed away maybe about 3 years ago. Of course, above that's Dr. Josie, but to the right of Lillian Cole, that's Vivian Davison Hewitt. She was the first Black president of the Special Libraries Association, and she died about 2 years ago. She lived to be 102 years old. And then below her, that's Donna Ramsey. She was very active, like in the awards, like the service awards for BCLA. And then right next to her is Virginia Moore. I think she was responsible for a whole lot of things. I think the Martin Luther King
Right.
Sunrise program that they had at ALA Midwinter. So these are some of the people, like the four mothers and fathers of the association. And these are the answers to these are the names of all the people. Okay. And Andrew and Marva, did you want to say anything? Marva, I want to hear from Marva.
Yes. Marva, can
Hi, hi everyone. Just want to say welcome. We're so glad that you're with us today. And we are excited that in 9 days we'll have the actual publications in our hands. So if we're really smiling a lot, that's one of the reasons that we're smiling. But we're so grateful to all of the essayists, the participants who helped to make this possible. One of the things that is different about this book, too, is that there are dedications to EJ by some of the people he mentored, and he mentored a slew of people. So you should find that quite interesting as you look through the book at the very beginning. And another thing I'd like to mention before we get into talking about this is that EJ is the one that really went forth and said, we cannot meet in states where Black people, we were colored than a Negro, colored and Negro, the progression. So BANK, Black, African American, Negro, colored. So he presented to the association, to council. It was agreed upon, and shortly thereafter, we started meeting in those associations. And I'll leave it at that for now. Let Andrew talk a little bit more, and we'll talk back and forth on the other issues. But
yeah,
thanks for coming.
thank you. I think it's important for people to know who EJ was. He mentored thousands of us across the country, encouraged people like myself to. I started in the profession in 1980 as a manager of the Langston Hughes Community Library and Culture Center of Queens Library. I was still working on my undergraduate degree at that time, and EJ supported me even then, welcoming me to the profession and telling me that he wished me well in the profession. And as I got more involved, plus I completed my undergraduate degree by 1990, working full time and going to school at night, and then was uncertain about a graduate degree because I really had gotten so interested in Black studies that I looked forward to getting a graduate degree in Black Studies, but there were no campuses close by. I'm in New York City, so there were no campuses in the New York City area without going to Pennsylvania or upstate New York to get a graduate program. And EJ said, "Well, why don't you think about librarianship? You're in the profession, you're learning, you're growing, you're doing a lot of great things at the library. Think about librarianship, and then you can teach you how to do your own research, and you can do your own study and your own research without the degree." Um, and then, of course, once I attended the National Conference of African American Librarians in 1992, I was hooked, meeting not only EJ but hundreds of Black librarians from across the country and a number of Black male librarians in the profession, and how impressed I was with the conference sessions, but also the demeanor of all the Black male librarians that I met. And I had been working with a lot of Black women librarians in New York City, so that was already my introduction. And that made me make the decision I was going to get my graduate degree. Graduated in 1996, and EJ was always one of those people that pushed you forward, even if you weren't sure what the next step was going to be. He was going to be there to push you forward. He's the one that got me involved in writing. In '85, he asked me to write an article for a publication that he was producing out of the New York State Education Department, called The Bookmark. And he liked what I did with that. I called it a double-edged sword on literacy. One about reading and access to books, but the other part was, of course, on Black history. That was part of that education and information that we had been neglected in many of our academic institutions. And then he came back and asked me to do some writing for him for the African American Almanac, and I did that for them. And now I'm not a writer, so I kept saying I'm not a writer, EJ. I don't know how. He said it's okay, just send me a draft in a couple of weeks. So he never would accept no as an answer. He was always giving you the confidence that you could do something, even if you would think you were qualified to do it. And here I am today working on the third edition. I also am the lead editor for the 21st Century Black Librarian in America Issues and Challenges, and have other essays that were published in publications on librarianship as well. So EJ is one of those those, what they call it, the wind underneath your wings that keep you floating and can move you forward. EJ was one of those people. Effie Lee Morris was the same way. Got me involved in national librarianship, with not only the American Library Association, but a national advisory board for another Langston Hughes Library in Clinton, Tennessee, on the farm of Alex Haley that were in Tennessee, and got me involved in that. And she was always supportive. And many of the elders that we have learned about are people who are always moving the next generation forward and keeping us replacing the ones who are retiring and passing on. But opening doors, making a difference, knocking down barriers that were in the way through with the creation of the Black Caucus of the American Library Association as an affiliate to ALA and not part of ALA, because they were always moving ALA forward to make difference and change and providing equity and balance with what was available to librarianship and the opportunities in the profession, when to make sure that the American Library Association was moving forward. And there's still some things that we're looking at ALA needs to do today. So EJ and Miss Effie Lee Morris and others, who some of them are still active in the profession, others have passed away, and others are retired. We now are the generation that we're moving forward. So to involve Michele Fenton in this project is the youngest of the three of us, who we look for to be the voice of the next generation. Her technology skills would have been, we could not have completed this project without her technology skills of not only creating this PowerPoint, but packaging the manuscripts so that we could get everything to the publisher on time. And then second, we have to thank Rowan and Littlefield for being a publisher that welcomed our project and accepted the proposal we submitted, and has been a partner in this to get this project done. When they had to delay the project, they were just as disappointed as we were. And they're just as excited about the book being released on November 15th as we are. So it's been something that we are adamant about and pushing forward, and that the book can be a tool for those in the profession today, but also tools for those who are going to be in the profession tomorrow, and resource that can be used across the board, no matter where you are in the library. We were adamant also about including people that were not included in the other editions, members of boards of trustees, people from the outside in the profession who love libraries but are not necessarily librarians, but maybe educators or publishers. We wanted the voice of those in the profession who don't have a degree, because that they're the foundation of what happens in many of our institutions. It's not just a librarian, but the support staff are just as important. We wanted to hear from the retirees, those who could leave pearls of wisdom for people in the future. And of course, inform of the current information on the Black Caucus of the American Library Association as well. So this book has expanded from the last 20 years and is a foundation for what can come out in the fourth edition, maybe in another 20 years. Michele?
Yeah, one thing I did want to say is I'm very grateful to Dr. Stanton Biddle. The historical data that he provided was stuff, the information he had kept for like going back to like the early days of the association. Because he sent me an email saying, "Hey, I got all this information, I really is this something you can use in the handbook?" I said, "Sure, just send us everything." But I didn't realize how much he had. I mean, he had everybody, every single person going back to the early days up until now. And I'm very grateful for him for that. Dr. Biddle is like a walking archive museum and database and library all wrapped up into one. And I hope he stays around for a long time. Got to find some way to keep him around because, you know, which is getting back to what my next point is that I'm so glad that this stuff is being documented because a lot of historical stuff is lost because it's no good if it just stays buried in somebody's head and then when that person dies, it's because there was a saying like when an old person dies, a library is lost. That's what happens when people don't document this stuff and keep it written down so everybody can know it and pass it on to the next generation of people. It's very important because there's a whole lot of wisdom in there. Not just the who was the leaders, but like significant events that happened. That's the other reason why we kept Dr. Josie's and Casper Jordan's two chapters from the original book because a lot of people didn't know about. Well, I didn't know that happened. I didn't know that happened in 1893. I didn't know about Edward Christopher Williams. They didn't know because this stuff is not necessarily being taught in LIS programs. And then I don't know, some of the textbooks or even LIS textbooks are even putting this stuff out there. I am glad to see that there are other books that are writing about, library history as far as through the lens of librarians of color, but I just wish there was more. And it's our hope that this book will add to that and maybe encourage people to like research this topic further. But I think this book is very much needed because, some people they don't really this book can kind of serve as like I don't like a hand source or read book, an encyclopedia, everything because some people when they're starting their profession they're by themselves. They don't really have anybody to really guide them as far as well, how do I deal with this? How do I deal with that? But when you read this handbook, you say, "Oh, okay, I got it." Or maybe they might be experiencing certain things. And they read this book and they see themselves in it, and they'll read some of the chapters and they'll say, "You know what? I know exactly what that is. I felt that I've gone through that. I've dealt with that." And especially the pearls of wisdom. Oh, really? This is the better way to deal with this problem. That's what we hope. That's one of the things I hope that this handbook, conveys to people that it's a guide and a resource. It's your best friend when everybody else ain't around.
I also hope that if you're excited about this book, then you can't just read the third edition. You need to have access to the complement of books that E.J. Josie published on Black librarianship. They're resources, they're historical resources, but they're also timetables of what was going on during those different eras with the Black Librarian in America, the Black Librarian in America Revisited, his two editions of the handbook, other books that he wrote. It's important, particularly those who are of the African ancestry in the profession, to realize the extent of involvement that we've had in making changes in the profession, moving forward the agendas of equity and inclusion in the profession, overcoming issues of racism in the profession that go back to, the T. Thomas Fortune days. And that these books are not just Bibles, but they're resource material for you to have at your fingertips. And if they're not in your libraries, then I would advise you that you should have your own copies because I have a shelf of books just on librarianship when I'm doing research, when I'm doing presentations, when I'm speaking, not only as a librarian and a former director of a library, but even as a member of the board of trustees of Queens Library, making sure that the meetings include some information on the history. And because the field of education of librarianship is still flawed in terms of providing the historical significance of people of African ancestry in the profession and with libraries, you need to know about this so they can evaluate your life and update your information and give you a sense of pride and heritage and where you fit into the profession of librarianship as well. One of the other people that we celebrate in this book, of course, has to be Sasha Marshall Lawrence, who just passed a little bit right over before the summer, and the role that she has had at the American Library Association with many of us as a big sister, a little sister to Marva, but a big sister, Michele and I, and always supporting us, keeping us on track with issues and pushing us forward when we weren't addressing issues that she felt were just as important as EJ would have addressed. Marva?
I want to just reiterate all of the things that you've said so far. And one of the things I'd like to encourage people to do is especially read the information from the retirees, the pearls of wisdom, and to be a person that's available to the new or people that have recently come into the profession. It's really important that we nurture those individuals, that we let them know what's available to them out there. Let them know how to get around stumbling blocks. Let them know that they have a lot to offer to the profession and to give it to the profession. When the fourth edition comes around and Michele is the lead in that, she will need those individuals to assist her so that this can go on and on and on. One of the things, too, that we talk about is how libraries work with museums, bookstores, and other organizations in the community to actually serve and portray what's going on that keeps the history alive. And something that has been happening with me in particular, as we've done these book talks, I've learned a lot from some of the essayists as they have also joined us. So that's important. We can always learn something new. So be open-minded and continue to move ahead. And while I'm retired, I still need to know a lot of what's going on. And this working with Andrew and Michele has been a treasure, a real treasure. I'd initially said, well, you know, I'm retired to myself and to Charles, but then I thought about it and I am so glad I moved ahead. These are fantastic people, and there are more of you fantastic people out there that we need to hear from.
Thank you. I think it's also important to look at the significance of a third edition to the Handbook of Black Librarianship in line with what DJ and I were talking about before we started, in line of what just happened yesterday with the change of administration and the new administration coming into Washington and the White House. There are library associations that will not allow their librarians to go to conferences or be part of ALA. There are governments and states that are impacting the libraries with banned books and censorship, Black history, and concerns of what we were providing in libraries and disrupting our mission of providing access to information, all kinds of information. We don't know what's going to come out of this administration, but we know that there are pockets of that administration in Texas and Florida, Arizona, and other parts of the country that want to dictate what we do as a profession, who we speak to in the profession, what kind of information we provide in our profession, how we meet with our conferences and our meetings, and are limiting access to librarians, tell them that they will not be funded to go to a library conference. Their libraries will be defunded if they participate and things like the American Library Association. This is something that is a challenge to what we do as a profession and the life that we've dedicated to serving our communities. And we are servants to our communities. Library, the stronger the library, the stronger a community. Libraries change lives. And what we do every day in all of the parameters of librarianship, whether you're in a school library, an academic library, public libraries, special libraries, research libraries, state libraries, wherever you are in the profession, and whatever capacity you work in, whether you're a degreed librarian, support staff, technology, trustee, whatever it is, our role in libraries cannot be dictated by somebody outside the profession that's going to tell us what we do and how we do our jobs. And that is important when you look at the work that is heralded through all of the issues of Black librarianship. And then you have a series of books that are about the issues of segregation in libraries, the desegregation of public libraries in the South, freedom libraries, not free for all, not at all for public libraries in the Jim Crow South, untold stories, civil rights libraries, and Black librarianship, or just some of the books that have been written about the issues of trying to have access to libraries in our communities and have jobs for people who work in libraries, but also the access to information that is required for people to be free and be citizens of this country. The Jim Crow laws that were passed throughout the South, the Black codes that limited due process of law and disrupted the right to vote, which means that you have the privilege of being a citizen and also making a difference in terms of voting for libraries and voting for access in libraries. All of these things are part of the history of our country, but they're also the history of our people in terms of having access to libraries, access to positions in libraries, and the role that we play as librarians within our communities and within our nation. And I think that's very important, and we need to take that into consideration with the books that are published and available that you can look at today and tomorrow and throughout this next 4 to 8 years.
Andrew, one thing I think we need to also mention, we've been talking about books, but there are lots of articles that are out there too. So remember that the research includes the articles. EJ, for one, published upwards of 400 articles in addition to his 13 books. So there, and with the new technology, there is so much that's available. For instance, the three of us, the three co-editors, have not been in the same room at the same time while we've been working on this. When we did the second, and when EJ and I did the second edition, we didn't have this technology available to us. So we are constantly moving ahead with all of the technologies. We are pushing the button, moving ahead, moving forward. Let's roll, let's roll, let's keep rolling. So we have to remember those types of things too.
Yeah, that's true.
And those of us that have been in the profession for a while, there's so much we can learn from these young people. I tell you, we couldn't have done this without Michele. She has taught me, reminded me of many things that I had forgotten. So definitely be sure to listen to our young people and talk to them about ways they can persevere.
Very true. Technology has made it such a difference in our profession. I remember being in graduate school, and there were no computers available to do my projects on. So I bought my own little Apple computer with the little screen and the green lettering on the screen, so I could work on my course projects and, of course, write grants for my library. And going back to that was not between 93 and 96. The advancement of technology from the 90s through now 2024 can't be overshadowed. I mean, everything we do in the library is impacted by technology now. So the skills that this generation brings in terms of technology, but access to information, you can go online and find more information in 5 minutes than we could find when we were going to research libraries ever. So, and we hope that this book will encourage you not only to learn about the history and resources and things that have impacted the profession in the past and through today, but how can you make a difference in the library? What can you learn from it? And you should be writing your own stories and getting your own stories ready for the next editions and write your own articles, submit articles and points of view to library journals and publications as well. And then work with Michele on the fourth edition in the next 10 or 15 years.
Yeah, I'd like to say something too about the technology. Yeah, the technologies were great, but there were some things, we had to do analog. Like, because when I would get some ideas about stuff, or when I would like correct people's, when we were going to the initial editing before we turned it over to the publishers, I would like get in my little notebook, get my little pen, start writing like, okay, maybe they should just make this sentence this way. And then I would like sometimes I would print out and take my little red pen and go like, this should be over here, move the stuff around. Because I mean, technology is good, but then sometimes you still need to retain like it's still what they call analog skills. Because there were sometimes like the internet would act funny, so you kind of had to still do stuff analog. But technology is great, but I don't think we want to be too overly dependent on it. But I will say though, it was great working with Marva and Andrew because they both had experience, dealing with publishers, making a book. Because I learned that when you're doing a book, it's more than just like putting words on a sheet of paper and putting it between, a cover. It's a lot involved. You have to talk about how long this book is going to be, the tape, the content, the design of it, the format, the flow, and then you have to keep on top of things, especially when you're doing something where you're having like people contributing chapters and essays. You have to stay on top of that, sending reminders to people, say, hey, your essays due, or when it comes to revisions, hey, do you have your revision done yet? Do you need more time? Because we're running on a schedule. We need to have this stuff back, by XYZ date. It's a whole lot. Then working with the publisher itself, like, okay, well, this is the how to design the cover, what's going to go on the back of the cover, everything. So I learned a lot, and that's if if there is a fourth edition and I happen to be the one doing it, I'm already prepared because I had two great mentors.
And this it's reinforced by what Michele and Marv have been saying. Michele is in Indiana, Marv is in California, and I'm in New York City. And the access of technology allowed us to do all of this work without being in the same space throughout this 2 years. Unless Michele and I saw each other at the conference, that was one thing. But when it comes to putting the project together, every Sunday we met religiously. And the other thing was that even though this was my idea for the book, one of the things I've always been about is that this is a group project, that Michele and Marv and I had to agree on everything we did. It wasn't, well, this is your project, you make the final decision. We made decisions all across the board. So whenever something was approved, it was all of us in the decision-making process and not somebody taking lead and others just following. And I think that's important as well. I'd like to, if we can, open it up to the floor for questions and comments and information that they might have, things that we didn't address that they might be looking for.
For sure. So go ahead if you want to ask a question, you can go ahead and unmute. Also, if you're on desk or anything and you don't want to ask it out loud, feel free and drop it in the chat. I will be happy to read questions.
While we're waiting for somebody to ask a question, can I ask, can we get a sense of where the audience is from and what type of positions you work in, what kind of libraries you're working in?
If you want to drop in the chat, maybe what libraries you're at. And so Addison said, from Michigan, currently working as a library assistant.
Okay. And for those that are in the profession that do not have degrees, maybe this is a catalyst for that you never it's never too late to go to graduate school and earn your degree. Um, one of the things I'm proudest of is the New York Black Librarians Caucus. That is my caucus here in New York City. When I retired, they dedicated a scholarship for me in my name, I should say, and I was adamant that I wanted it to go to those who do not have a degree to help them get through their undergraduate program so that they can be eligible to get a graduate degree. There are plenty of scholarships available in the profession, but I wanted to make sure that there were opportunities for people like I did myself who needed support to get through my undergraduate program, do that, and then they take advantage of the scholarships that are available in the library profession. So I see this is a lot of libraries throughout Michigan.
Yep. Yeah,
Great,
we have
great.
directors,
Detroit
we
Public,
have adult librarians,
youth
all over.
librarians, director of public
I-
services. All right.
we did get a question. Any suggestions about how to get coworkers to read it? What are the value that I can present for white library workers?
I'm sorry, I didn't see that. I heard you, but I couldn't see the question.
This is from Anna. Sorry, there were a lot of comments.
Okay. I'm sorry. Could you ask the question again? I don't see it on
Yeah.
the screen.
So, any suggestions on how to get coworkers to read it? What is the value that I can present for white library workers? So
Um,
maybe people who don't have a cultural investment.
okay. This again, this is not this book, even though it's a handbook of Black librarianship, it's a handbook for librarianship. It's for everybody. And everybody, I remember a comment by Chimamanda Adichie, a Nigerian author, that did a YouTube video that's accessible on the computer called "The Danger of a Single Story," and that having one interpretation of a story doesn't mean that it's complete. It means that it's incomplete because there are always other alternatives to a story, and that making this information available opens up the possibility of having discussions, sharing ideas, and even learning from each other about the history of librarianship, issues within the profession, and the value of what this material is is valuable to a non-Black librarian as it is to a Black librarian. And I think sometimes when you're having your staff meetings and things come up, being able to refer back to sources like the Handbook of Black Librarianship or some of other EJ's other books, or even these books about how libraries were denied throughout the South. For the people in the profession and libraries and communities, I think it's important to have those discussions if we're going to move the profession forward and open up and tear down some of the barriers that still exist in terms of what access to material, access to libraries, and equity, diversity, and inclusion in our libraries. I hope that gives you some suggestions.
I have a good question. So I think oftentimes I know, especially like in culture and whatnot, people will focus a lot on Black trauma or Black pain or Black struggle. And oftentimes the resistance to that is talking about Black joy. What examples of Black joy did you find in the handbook from people submitting?
I did notice that a librarian had wrote about her trauma as when she was doing her librarian residency, but at the same time, she did take away some good things from that. So that's kind of joy. And then several other people spoke on their stuff too, that dealing with the joy as like uh, how to do like teach technology in a community where providing technology in communities that where you had this big digital divide and the the feeling you got from being helping people and get this technology brought, that was joy. But at the same time it was a challenge, but it was still joy. I think and then there are some stuff from the Pearls of Wisdom section where people talked about their pain and trauma, but they also balance it out with joy too, of overcoming those obstacles. So I think the book has a balance. It's not all trauma, but it's also not all joy either. It's a balance. But yeah, you might have trauma, but the joy part is like when you show people how people can overcome and navigate obstacles and roadblocks, etc.
I think that one of the other joys that you'll find throughout the book is um, the joy that we got working in the profession and being librarians. We know that this is not the profession that people get into for the money. Many times it's not the prestige, but it's the joy of being able to serve. It's the joy of knowing that we have a position in every community, no matter what community in. The value of the library, the value of the librarian is still a work in progress. There are people that still don't respect the role of the library or even understand what a librarian is, and the joy that we get from what we've done. Um, I look back on my 36 years in the library, and now my 12th year as a library trustee, as an adjunct instructor in library science at Queens College, and I look back and I think all of the things that I did before this, working for the city in human resources for 8 years, working for Chevrolet in customer service, and even my 4 years in the military that gave me some direction and gave me some discipline and challenge overcoming obstacles. All of those things prepared me for what I've been doing as a librarian for the last 36 years. So sometimes it takes
Yeah.
the challenge of going through things, but overcoming them and looking back at what you do, the value of the work that you do every day. There's some value to what you've done, and somebody you help, somebody you've introduced to a book, somebody you've helped find, do the research or assist with the technology, or even open the door for a library that what the library can be for them. Those things are something that you can't chronologize in a historical journal, but they're part of the journey that you get as a librarian.
Yeah, I agree with all that has been said. I have worked in several types of libraries. Academia is where I've done most of my work. I've done reference, I've done management, I've done collection development. I have used my skills when I worked in the social sciences with the social sciences student scholars project. I think that librarianship puts us on the precipice of every other profession. There is joy, always joy. I can't express that enough. When I finished undergraduate school with my bachelor's in math education, I was offered a scholarship to do my doctorate in math. But if I did not complete my doctorate, I would not get a master's. I was also offered scholarships in library science. And I thought about it. Gee, if I've got math, I've got library science, I can always get a position. I always have something to offer. And when I went out to interview, I put these ideas forward, and I was not afraid to say what was on my mind. And there were a few positions that I declined because I didn't like what they were saying or wanted me to do. And you can, that's joy to be able to do that, to have that confidence. So I'd like to say, hey, keep on reading. It's a joy. When I was growing up and people didn't see me and they'd ask, and my family would say, oh, she's somewhere reading. Well, most of the time they were right. And I learned that there was so much joy I got from that because the town that I grew up in had one stoplight in it, one stoplight. But I have moved forward, and that one stoplight encouraged me to go and other stoplights and come out here to the West Coast. So there is joy, more joy, more joy.
Yeah. I have a sweatshirt that I love to wear. It says, nobody ever graduated from a library, but nobody ever graduated without one. And that's true. I
Love
mean,
that.
the impact that we have globally. When we were talking with Wade and Cheryl Hudson, who are the publishers of Just Us Books, that the publishing company that they started, I think it's been in existence now 13 years or more, maybe longer than that, I think from the 70s. They were saying that not only the joy that they get from publishing Black books for children, and it's expanded because they also are authors, but the fact that libraries has had such an impact on the success of their publishing company, because where people can't afford to buy books, they can circulate them through a library. So the connection that libraries have outside of the profession is just as valuable as what we do within the profession. And all of the people that we we impact, and all the people that we involve with what we do every day. Librarianship is a profession that is hard to manage. Any other profession can get the joy that we get of serving our communities.
Yeah. One other thought about why people may want to read our book is we've got a list of bookstores, we've got museums. So all of that information is at least a jumping off point.
Yeah.
So there is all of that type of information in there for them to look at.
Yeah. And with the other question, how have you guys seen the
Yes.
change since all of you started? What do you think the role of library will change in the future? The biggest change in our profession has been the growth and development and expansion of the profession, but also the impact that technology has had on the profession, access to information, and the tools that we now use in the library. Uh, Everything is based on technology now, so that's a major change. Um, I think these things are going to continue to change and manifest themselves in the future. Technology will continue to make differences in the collection. I know in the last 10 years or so that they were talking about, well, people won't need to come to the library because now you can just circulate books online. People come to the library for more than just books. They come for the socialization. They come for interacting. They come for the programs and services and the training programs and using the technology at the library. So the library is going to just continue to be a major foundational resource in our communities, and a place for many people started their employment working in the library or in the homework program as tutors in the library's tutoring programs. That's an opportunity that opens the door for people to get in the profession as well.
Speaking of technology, when I was teaching at San Jose State uh, library program, I used to talk about technology, and as I went back, I explained to people that the pen and pencils were technology. So technology has always been there.
Yeah.
It's just progressed.
Yeah. 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 And then there was the typewriter and the
Yes,
machine, the Xerox
yeah.
machine.
Mm-hmm. All kinds of technology, all the way
Yeah.
from the pencil.
Yeah.
And even the tablets that what before we got pencils and all of that to write with.
Yeah.
The
Zoom.
scrolls we looked at,
Yeah.
those were
Yeah.
technologies.
Just imagine you couldn't have this online meeting if it wasn't for Zoom, if it wasn't for the computer. So yeah, I mean,
Right?
these things just going to continue to change and advance. More advancements make it more better for the future.
And what about AI? We
Oh,
have no idea what that's going to be.
yeah, yeah. We're being introduced to that now. Other questions?
So I know we're running, we got about 5 minutes left. I want to make sure,
Oh,
um, uh, before we wrap up, um, maybe if you have any like pearls of wisdom that you can give to everyone who's sitting in here today, what would that be?
My word, pearls of wisdom would be never say no. Opportunity open, the door of opportunity opens up. Take advantage of it. You never know how successful you can be in that opportunity. You never know what you'll learn from that opportunity, and you never know the legacy you'll leave and the impact that that work will be. Um, I've always had concerns about whether I was competent to do a lot of things. And I think that's one of the things I got from my tour in the Air Force of having some discipline, but also challenging things that I thought I could not do. If I had not taken opportunities to take that job at the library without a degree, without knowing anything about, I know our libraries, but if I had taken that job as an opportunity, where would I be today? What would my life been like without having worked at the library for 36 years? So take advantage of it and have confidence in yourself. You never know what you're capable of.
I second everything that you've just said. Definitely.
I think of the extension of that is always have mentors. I'll be 78 years old in January. I still have mentors that when I have some serious decisions to make, I have projects that I want to undertake, or I'm in the midst of a writing project and I want to run some ideas. I have three elders that I contact today that are always willing to give me advice, honest, open, serious advice that I will take when I'm making final decisions. All of us should have mentors, and you should always be looking for mentors.
And mentors can be younger than you are your same age. I know I have a couple of former students that I run different things by. One of my former students, for instance, works at Pixar, and there are things that come up, archival related or whatever. I check with her about things. I have another student that really got very involved in international issues before I was really turned on to international. So, your mentors can be younger, your same age, or your elders. So be open to that idea too.
True, 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 true.
So your mentor mentors you also.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that in the legacy of E.J. Josie, be ready to tell your story. Be willing to write. And writing is an acquired trait. You're not born knowing how to write well. But the more you write, the better you become. But you should be able to write your story and tell your story and write your stories about what you've experienced so that other people can learn from it. And it's also a healing process when you have to go through issues and challenges, overcoming those issues and challenges, how you did it, looking at the chapters in the three different handbooks of how people have overcome racism and microaggressions and all those things. We're all dealing with that today, but there are lessons to be learned from books, but also people will learn from your lessons as well.
And I like to add, I agree with both what Andrew and Marva said. I'll add too that never stop learning, make a commitment to be a lifelong learner. So many people think, well, I got my degree, that's it. No, don't. Keep learning because it's like they were talking about earlier, technology is changing so fast. You don't want to be the person that gets left behind.
True that. True that.
Yeah, and also I want to share that here's some more books that being published. This is Dr. Josie, this is Clara Stanton Jones, and then this is the some of the books in the Black Librarian in America series. And then here's two of the books that I think Andrew was talking about earlier. And then also there's like the book is available from these Barnes and Noble, Amazon, Roman and Littlefield, and then there's a discount code available. I'm sorry that the screen's not too clear, but somebody could put that code in the chat. But
Yeah.
yeah, but you can only use this code if you get it directly from Roman and Littlefield.
And DJ and Steve, do you have any questions you wanted to ask us as we close out?
I just want to say thank you. Like a big thank you for this project. A big thank you for continuing this work. Every time I hear you guys talk about this, it warms my heart a little bit more. I had just entered this role when this opportunity to write for this project came in. And I said, "Oh, well, hey, let's just give it a shot." And then I ended up in it, and it was a really big moment for me. So I feel like any kind of uh, moment that you can have to make help someone out, helps them get to their next step, is worth taking. So thank you for this.
We thank you for your contribution.
Yes,
The essays in this book make the book, not necessarily my essays or the forward or the contribution we put in the book, but all of the hundreds of essays that are in there are the ones that are going to make this book valuable, resourceful, and committed to future progress in our profession. So thank you.
thank you. Thank you.
And then additionally, for everyone watching, the code is in the chat. I'll make sure it's in the notes for YouTube, which is my segue to say this video will be recorded. So if you want to come back and get more information, you can always do that on our YouTube page. Thank you all again for doing this.
They can always reach out to us if they want any information from us, or we can be of assistance or any mentoring. We're available as well. Peace and blessings.
Yes,
And thank you.
yes, definitely. Thank you.
All right, enjoy the rest of your day and
You
take care,
too.
everyone.
You do the same.
Take care. Peace and
Thank
blessings,
you.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye now.
Bye bye.
Thank you.